لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والجنة للموحدين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. All praise belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the choicest of blessings and salutations upon our Master Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. It's a great honor for me to be with the Kawthar community on this blessed Friday, and it's important for us to realize as we are sitting present here that this Jumu'ah on this Friday is the most beloved of all Jumu'ahs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala since the beginning of the year. Dhul Hijjah marks the end of the year. Muharram starts at the beginning of the year. Dhul Hijjah is the last month on the Muslim calendar. But all Jumu'ahs that took place throughout the year since Muharram, this Jumu'ah is the most beloved of them, and this Jumu'ah is the greatest in the eyes of all. Not because I am delivering this speech today, but because it forms part of the 10 days of the Hijjah. And our Prophet ﷺ told us that مَا مِنْ أَيَّامٍ, there are no days, الْعَمَلُ الصَّالِحُ فِيهِ, where good deeds are أَحَبُّ, more beloved to Allah. In one narration he said, أَعْظَمْ, greater in the eyes of Allah, than actions performed during the first 10 days of the Hijjah. So you and I, when we sit in the Masjid today, unlike every Friday that has gone by since Muharram, the beginning of the year, this Jumu'ah that I'm performing, that I'm attending, is more loved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and great in the eyes of Allah. And it's a great honor for me to be on this blessed day. Jamaatul Muslimin, it's important that we appreciate and that we realize that I made a reference to an Islamic calendar. And we're living in a Western society, a Western world, where everything we do is tied into a Western calendar. And sometimes we just need to be reminded that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, speaking about calendars, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that إِنَّ عِدَّةَ الشُّهُورِ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ 12 شَهْرًا, that indeed the number of months by your Lord, by who? By Allah. إِنَّ عِدَّةَ الشُّهُورِ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ, the number of months by Allah are 12. يَوْمَ خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, from the time Allah created the heavens and the earth. From the day, because time, there was a time where time did not exist. The concept of time did not exist. Allah created the concept of time when He created the heavens and the earth. And when Allah created the heavens and the earth, with that Allah created time. And from the day Allah created time, Allah divided time into 12 months. Time was already divided. When it was created, it was divided into 12 months. And these 12 months, of course, are the months that begin with Muharram and it ends with Dhul Hijjah. Muharram, Safar, Rabi' al-Awwal, Rabi' al-Thani, Jumad al-Ula, Jumad al-Akhir, Rajab, Sha'ban, Ramadan, Shawwal, Dhul Qa'dah, and Dhul Hijjah. And it's important for us to realize that these months that I read now, whether I'm familiar with these months or not familiar, these are the months with which Allah divided time into. That's a division that is divined by Allah. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Inna zaman, indeed time, qad istadara, continues revolving and turning around. Kahayatihi, similar to the day Allah created time. When Allah created time, it was divided into 12 months. And the 12 months were the months that begin with Muharram and ends with Dhul Hijjah. And that should really come to you and I as a long while, because why is it that I constantly, over and over, tie all my occasions, even religious occasions, into a Western calendar that begins with January, that was created by some pope, and I ignore the calendar that was created by Allah from the day Allah created time. And we understand that when you're living in a Western society, that my work and my school holidays is all tied into this Western calendar. But of course the Western society doesn't govern how I celebrate the Yafatal of a family member that passed away, or a sheikh that passed away, or the birthday of my son or my daughter, or the anniversary of other occasions in my life. Does it not make more sense for me as a believer to tie them into Allah's calendar rather than tying my entire existence into a Western calendar that was created by some folk, and I've become, and my family and my children, oblivious of a calendar that was created by Allah. And therefore our children, most of the time, they don't know what month they are in. They don't know what the day is. So distant have we become from Allah's calendar, yet we are so in tune and familiar with the Western calendar that was created by man. So the first lesson is that we need to become more in tune and in touch with this Islamic calendar, because it is Allah's calendar. Inna iddat ashhur inna iddat ashhur inda Allah 12 shahran. Then Allah said, minha arba'atun hurum. Of these 12 months, 4 are sacred. Why are they sacred? They're not sacred because some wali of Allah says they're sacred. They're not sacred because some religious organization made them sacred. They're not sacred even because a prophet or an angel made them sacred. They are sacred because our Creator, Allah, declared them as sacred. There are 4 months in this year that Allah made sacred. When Allah made them sacred, it means that the reward for my good deeds are multiplied and the consequences of my bad deeds are multiplied. As Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala, he said, what the meaning of sacredness is that the reward for good are multiplied and the consequences of bad are multiplied, or wrongdoing is multiplied. And therefore in the sacred months, a believer he exerts himself in acts of obedience, and he abstains as best as humanly possible to stay away from that which is displeasing to our Creator Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What are the sacred months? Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said in the hadith, ثلاثة متواليات, 3 of them follow each other. One comes after the other, and he sallallahu alayhi wa sallam referred to Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah and Muharram. 3 sacred months. And he said one of them stand alone, and that's the month of Rajab, and therefore it's also known as Rajab al-Fard, the Rajab that stands alone, because it's one of the sacred months that stands alone. So of all the days in the year, in terms of sacredness, where reward for my good deeds are multiplied, but that only matters if reward is something that concerns me. If I'm not bothered about reward for my good deeds and my good action, then the sacredness of these months also means nothing to me. And that's another problem on its own. What is my relationship with my Lord Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How much do I believe in the day of recompense, Yawm al-Jaza, the day when I stand in front of Allah? How much do I believe in that day? We will be rewarded for my good and punished for my wrong. In proportion to my conviction about the day when I will stand in front of Allah, and I will be compensated for the wrong and my right, to that extent I become worried about my good deeds. Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, he was sitting in the Masjid, when somebody came to him and told him that a person who performs the Salatul Janazah on the deceased receives 1 qirat in reward. A qirat is the weight of Mount Uhud in reward. That's what you get for praying Salatul Janazah over the deceased. Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar wasn't worried, he always prayed when he hears of a janazah, he performs the janazah salah. The person then went on to say, and Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said that whoever follows the janazah to the maqbarah, to the graveyard, to witness the burial, gets another qirat of reward, another Mount Uhud weight in reward. Mount Uhud is about 7 kilometers long and 1 kilometer high. You can do the math, how much reward is there in following the janazah to the maqbarah. Sayyidina Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu anhu, he says to the person narrating the hadith, are you sure the Prophet said that? Go to the home of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha and ask her, did the Prophet say that the one who follows the janazah to the maqbarah also gets 1 qirat of reward? So his student went. And then they said, Sayyidina Abdullah bin Umar sat in the masjid, he picked up stones and was playing with stones in his hand. Why? Because he has conviction that one day he's going to stand in front of Allah. And whatever reward was promised to him, he will receive it on that day. And here's a large amount of reward because he was not particular about going to the maqbar. So he was worried. He was filled with worry. The student went to Aisha radiallahu anha, Ya al-Mu'mineen, Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar sent me to your home. He wanted to know, did the Prophet ﷺ say that whoever follows the janazah to the maqbarah to witness the burial is going to get one khirat of reward? She said yes. The student then went back to the masjid, informed Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar that Sayyidatuna Aisha confirmed that the person who follows the burial to the maqbarah gets the reward of the khirat, and he took the stones and threw it on the ground, and he said, how many rewards have I lost? Because he's concerned. Where's my concern? We now know that these 4 sacred months, the reward for my good is multiplied. And the punishment or the consequences of my wrong is multiplied. So now I need to be particular. When are these sacred months? When Dhul Qa'dah entered already, which is now just over a month ago, like 5 weeks ago, Dhul Qa'dah entered already. Me and my family and my household, we're all supposed to know Dhul Qa'dah has entered as one of the sacred months. Our rewards are going to be multiplied. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us there are 12 months that begins with Muharram and ends with Hijjah. 4 of them are sacred. We need to know the sacred months. Our children must know the sacred months. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, however, he said that of all the sacred months, the most sacred of the 4 sacred months is the month of Dhul. And we are now Dhul. And then the Prophet ﷺ in other hadith, he alluded to the fact that the most sacred days of the most sacred month of Hijjah are the first 10 days of Dhul. And then he also told us ﷺ that within these first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah, 2 days stand out as more sacred than the rest. And we are fastly approaching those 2 days. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam referred to, Allah referred to it in the Quran. Before Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when Allah said, Wal Fajr, by dawn, by the morning, Walayalin Ashar, by the 10 days of the day. By 10 nights, meaning the first 10 days of the day. Allah took an oath by these 10 days. And then even though the 10 days concludes with the day of Arafah and the day of Nahar, slaughtering, the day of Eid, Allah went on to highlight those 2 days in particular when Allah said, وَالشَّفْعِ وَالْوَتْرِ, by the even night and the odd night. Of course, the odd day referring to the day of Arafah, which is the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, and the even day referring to the day of Nahar, the day of slaughtering, the day of Eid. Of these 10 days, those 2 days are the most sacred of days. And we fastly approach it. Impressing the greatness of these days, Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he told us that a person who fasts any day of the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah receives the reward of 1 year of fasting. In another narration, he sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, every day of the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah equals 1,000 days of fasting. 1,000 days. That's 3 years. Except the day of Arafah, which is Sunday. The person who fasts on Sunday, that day equals 10,000 days. 10,000 days.
Arafah Bukra.
No.
Arafah Bukra.
No.
That's La Yamul.
No. So, am I going to fast the day of Arafah? Am I going to fast the day of Arafah? Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, whoever fasts the day of Arafah, whoever fasts the day of Arafah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives him a year of sins that have gone by, and a year of sins that are in the future. The Alta said Arafah is Saturday. The majority of scholars said that Arafah is Sunday. The day of Arafah, according to our calendar, is Sunday. And there are some Muslims that believe that on Saturday. And whatever position you adopt, you need to respect the view of the different scholars. A person that holds my view is correct and everyone else is wrong, he will always be in conflict and he will always be fighting. But the person who broadens his chest and say that I follow this view while I believe that someone else can be right, and the other person says I follow a different view while I believe others can be right, that's how the hearts of the Ummah of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam comes together. That's how the Ummah grows in strength. But when we don't tolerate differences that exist among the ulama, then we'll continue being at loggerheads. And the enemies, the Zionists, will continue growing and taking advantage of this Ummah, and we're going to be fighting over matters relating to such aspects of our deen where there's room for talaq, for difference of opinion, and a room for talaq. And therefore, if somebody wishes to fast today, Saturday, as a day of Arafah, we say ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaban. That's a view that exists within this ummah. That's a view that our hearts can accept. That's a view that our hearts can be contented with. And if we follow the majority, such as the teachings of the imams in our community, and they have the evidences. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he fasted the 9th of Dhul Hijjah when he was in Medina, even though the Hujjaj, based on the calendar in Medina al-Munawwara at the time, the Hujjaj were on Arafah on the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, but the Prophet fasted the 9th of Dhul Hijjah. And then there's room for differences, and we accept those differences. Fast the 8th, fast the 9th. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever fasts the day of Arafah, based on the views of the ulama you are following, 1 year of sins in the past will be forgiven, and 1 year of sins in the future will be forgiven. In another narration, Hafiz ibn Hajar has a very interesting work titled Al-Mukaffirah. He compiled a booklet with such actions where if you perform them, Allah forgives all your past sins and all your future sins. Right? And one of the narrations he produces with this chain of transmission, that Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever fasts the day of Arafah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives him all his past sins and all his future sins. So you and I, Jamaatul Muslimin, how can the day of Arafah enter? And then I'm not from those who are fasting. I'm not from those that are executing this great practice that Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us, despite the immense reward that is attached to it. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to increase in good. May Allah allow us to increase in good actions during these 10 days of the Hijjah. A few days are left. It's Friday, Saturday and Sunday. We're at a very important juncture now. Am I going to allow these days to go to waste? Or am I going to take maximum benefit from these days? Do I know whether Allah is going to give me another 10 days of Hijjah? What are my nights like? Alhamdulillah, our Imam al-Hudayfa was saying that there are a number of exciting programs scheduled here at the Masjid. There's Salatul Layl, there's Salatul Tahajjud, there's going to be dhikr, there's going to be classes of knowledge. Am I going to be present, or am I going to give preference to whatever else I'm going to be doing over the weekend? How can I find myself in Canal Walk during these blessed days, or the N1 city, wherever it is, that, like the mall that's closest to me, I find myself engaged in unnecessary activity when the status of these days are so high. No days, the Prophet ﷺ said, the 10 days of the Hijjah are the greatest days of the year. In another narration, he said that the 10 days of the Hijjah are the greatest days of this dunya. Another important thing, Jamaatul Muslimin, I'll conclude with this, is that our Hajjaj have left to Mina today. My activity during this time, our Mashayikh told us, I should search out such actions. If I cannot physically perform the Hajj, search out such actions that earns me the reward of the Hajj. From the actions that earns you a reward of the Hajj, attending a class of knowledge in the Masjid during any time in the year. I go to a Masjid, I attend the class of knowledge and I read. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that person is earning the reward of the Hajj. If I sit in the Masjid from Fajr till Ishraq, pray 2 rakat of Ishraq and Duha, the Prophet said a reward of Hajj is recorded for that person. So you must seek out such actions. But one of those actions that will earn for you and I the reward of Hajj is to have hearts that are connected to the Hajj. And my heart needs to be with them. And if my heart is with them, I will receive the reward of what they will receive. And if you think that there's no basis for my kalam, for my speech, then reflect in the authentic hadith of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was out on an expedition with his companions. In Medina al-Munawwara, there was a group of Sahaba that were not with Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but their hearts were with the companions of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The hearts were connected. They wanted to be with, but they had an excuse preventing them from doing it. If my state of my heart is that, had it not been for visas or for finances or for passports or for sale or whatever the case may be, had it not been for these hurdles, I would have been with the Hujjaj and Mina today. Then listen to the words of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Inna bil Madinati aqwam. In another narration he said, La rijal, in Medina they are men. Ma sirtum masiran, you have not traveled any distance. Wa ma qata'tum wadiyan, you haven't gone through any valley. Illa kanu ma'akum, say those men were with you. And they were earning the same reward you were earning. The only reason they were not with you on this expedition, Rasulullah said, Habasahumul marad, in one narration, sickness prevented them from joining you. And in another narration he said, Habasahumul udhr, some excuse prevented them from joining you, but their hearts are with you. Had it not been for that excuse, they would be with you, and because of that, they are receiving the same reward you are receiving. If you and I, Jamaatul Muslimin, if my state is such that had it not been for all finances or visas or you name it, I would have been there with the Hijjah in minutes. And I would travel with them tomorrow to Arafah, and then to Muzdalifah, and I would felt the Jamarat with them, and then let Kawthar with Kawthar with them. If my heart is truly there, then when they leave Arafah with sins that are forgiven, then my sins are also forgiven. When they receive the reward of a Hajj, I also receive the reward of a Hajj, because my heart is there. A sign that my heart is with the Hijjah is that I'm not spending this time walking in Canal, walking in one city. A sign that my heart is with the Hijjah is that I'm in the Masjid. I'm attending class of knowledge. I'm making dhikr. I'm attending the Arafah program. I'm attending the Salatul Layl. I'm attending the pro. That's a sign that my heart is connected to the Hijjah, because I want to engage in activity that is similar to the activity. And if that is the state of my heart, then I will also receive the reward of the Hijjah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our hearts such hearts that are connected to the Hijjah. Hearts where we desire to be with them, and on account of that desire, may Allah, as Allah takes the Hijjah tomorrow to Arafah, and then the evening to Muzdalifah, and then to Mina to Kawthar, Jamaratul Aqaba, then it's as if we are with them earning the reward. May Allah record the reward for us. Ameen. May Allah allow us to take maximum benefit from the days that lie ahead. May we not be from those who are heedless. May we not be from those who are heedless. On the day of Arafah, Saturday or Sunday, that day Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's no time in the year where Allah is more merciful. There's no time in the year where sins are forgiven like the day of Arafah. There's no time in the year where necks are set free from Jahannam like on that day. And there's no restriction. When Allah, the Rasul turned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on Arafah, Ya Rabb, forgive every believer. Allah replied saying that I forgive every believer except the oppressor. So Rasul said, Ya Rabb, if you want to guide the oppressor and thereby forgive him as well, and reward the oppressed with Jannah, you can forgive the oppressor and give the oppressed Jannah. And he continued making the dua until he arrived on Muzdalifah. When he arrived on Muzdalifah, he received the response from Allah that, O Muhammad, even the oppressor I have forgiven on this day. And then he saw Shaitan throwing sand over his body, wailing because of how his life effort has come to null and void, because he misguided people all their lives. And the day of Arafah comes and Allah forgives, and his effort goes down the drain. So the Prophet was seen smiling. Sayyidina Abu Bakr and Sayyidina Umar said, Ya Rasulullah, why are you smiling on this evening on Muzdalifah? And he said that if you were to see how disgraced Shaitan is right now, you will be smiling. The day of Arafah, Jamaatul Muslimin, is a day for forgiveness. It's a day for repentance. It's a day for crying in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a day for turning towards Him. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from those who are engaged in ibadah on that special occasion, from those who are fasting, from those who are drawing close to Allah, from those who are crying in front of Him, such that this weekend doesn't go by, so that we are forgiven and we return similar to that state that our mothers have given birth to us. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Salamun ala al-mursalin.